Our thighs. We all know where our thighs are located and most likely have heard the term quadricep and hamstring. But our thighs are so much more than that. They are a group of muscles that help extend and flex our leg. I'm going to explain to you how our anterior and posterior thigh muscles work, as well as their relation to the knee and why it's important to work our thigh muscles. I am first going to talk about our anterior extensor thigh muscles. Anterior, as we know, is our frontal half of our body. So when referring to our anterior thigh muscle, I am talking about two muscles, our quadriceps and our sartorius. Now when we break apart the term quadriceps, quad meaning four and sep meaning head, quadricep literally translates to four heads. Our quadriceps actually isn't a single muscle, but a group of muscles. First, let's talk about our sartorius. Our sartorius is actually the longest muscle in the human body. It originates from our anterior superior iliac spine, comes down laterally and into the medial part of our tibia. Our sartorius lets us abduct or lift our hip, assists in hip flexion and knee medial rotation. Our rectus femoris is the first muscle I am going to explain in the quad. If we break down rectus femoris, rectus meaning straight in Latin, and femoris, which contains the term femur, we can identify the rectus femoris as the muscle that runs straight down the front of the thigh and inserts at the patella. It allows flexion at the hip joint and extension of the knee joint. We can see that our rectus femoris covers a large portion of our thigh, but that does not necessarily mean it is the strongest. It is actually prone to injury since it crosses both at the knee and the hip. Exercises for the rectus femoris include squats and lunges. From our rectus femoris, we are going to move laterally to our vastus lateralis muscle. When trying to determine the location of a muscle, the name is usually an indicator of where we can find it. For example, vastus meaning large and lateralis on the lateral side, we can easily identify that this is the location of our vastus lateralis. Our vastus lateralis muscle comes down from the greater trochanter of the femur and inserts around the tibial tuberosity through our patellar ligament. This muscle allows knee extension. Our vastus lateralis muscle is the largest and most powerful muscle in the quadriceps and is used in many activities, like running. Strengthening this muscle will alleviate pain that our knee takes from pounding the pavement. Coming around our anterior thigh muscle, we have the vastus medialis. Again, breaking down the name, we can identify a large muscle located medially, but we need to be sure to remember that we have already found the sartorius muscle. Our vastus medialis is slightly behind the sartorius and then visible near the patella. The vastus medialis comes from our linea aspera at the femur and then medially inserts at the patella. The action of this muscle extends the knee. Because the primary action and insertion of the muscle involves the knee, a weak vastus medialis will not prevent future knee injury. The last muscle in our quadricep femoris is our vastus intermedius. Vastus intermedius runs down the front of the thigh in between vastus medialis and our vastus lateralis. But to pinpoint this muscle, we will need to go underneath the rectus femoris. The vastus intermedius is the deepest muscle of the quadricep. It originates from our anterior and lateral surface of the femur and inserts at our tibial tuberosity. This muscle also assists in knee extension. This wraps up our anterior thigh muscle. So, to go over what we have just talked about, we have our sartorius, our quadriceps, which is made up of 4 muscles, the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, the vastus medialis, and our vastus intermedius. Now, I will go into our posterior thigh. Next, we move to the posterior side or the back region of our thigh. When we think of our thigh, the second muscle that usually comes to mind is the hamstring. But just like our quadricep, the hamstring is a collective term. It is made up of 3 muscles, the semitendinosus, semimembranosus, and the bicep femoris. The hamstring plays a crucial role in many daily activities, such as walking, running, and jumping. The first muscle of our hamstring that I am going to talk about is our bicep femoris. Taking what we know from the quadricep, we can identify that the bicep femoris is a bi, meaning 2, and set, meaning head. So the bicep femoris consists of our long head and short head. It lies laterally within the posterior compartment and attaches at the ischium and femur to the fibula. It extends the thigh at the hip joint and flexes the leg at the knee joint. Next, we will discuss our semitendinosus, just next to our bicep femoris. It also originates from the ischial tuberosity, but as well as the sacrotuberous ligament. It inserts at the head of the fibular and lateral condyle of the tibia. Our semitendinosus allows extension of the hip joint, stabilization of the pelvis, and internal rotation of the knee. Lastly, we have our semimembranosus. This originates from the outer surface of the ischial tuberosity and inserts at the medial tibial condyle of the oblique popliteal ligament as well as the popliteal fascia. This muscle allows extension of the hip joint, stabilization of the pelvis, and internal rotation of the knee. The difference between the semimembranosus and the semitendinosus is the muscle insertion. And that wraps up our posterior thigh muscles. The hamstring, although significantly smaller than the quadricep, also plays a huge role in knee injury prevention. By strengthening our hamstring, we are alleviating any pressure our knee may feel when we partake in some of our favorite activities, just like running. By taking care of our posterior and anterior thigh muscles, we are in turn taking care of our knee. It is important to remember that the human body is interconnected, and if we neglect one group, then another group suffers. In this case, if we neglect our thigh muscles, then our patella, or our knee, is the one that takes a beating. Literally. Could you imagine pounding the pavement day after day with weak thigh muscles? I know I can't. By taking care of our thigh muscles, strengthening, stretching, foam rolling, icing, and obviously rest, we're going to allow our body to do so much more for us. And that is the most important thing.